here. It's August 1st for the Live Brilliance Conference all about mindfulness.
What we're doing is showcasing mindfulness because it's so new to so many people. We want to showcase the medical benefits of it as well as the brain fitness benefits. It's being embraced by a lot of schools, colleges, and athletic teams, as well as businesses and corporations around the country. So we'd like to make sure that people of our region are familiar with it and understand exactly what it is.
Hi, my name is Josh Gansky, and I'm a mindfulness teacher and school counselor. I will be on one of the panels today talking about bringing mindfulness to schools and working with educators and families and kids. It also is an opportunity for me to learn and also share my experiences and what I've learned from mindfulness.
I'm Richard Linton. I'm an actor. I'm a QVC on-air guest host, and I'm here today to talk about performance, acting, and mindfulness and meditation. My strong belief is that the world would be a much better place if every man and every woman could sit in a room in silence, alone, and meditate. The reason mindfulness helps in everyday life is because you're kind of resetting your mind to like a blank slate, a clean canvas to start to do whatever you want to do. It could be performing, it could be working in a store, it could be anything at all. But the idea is to come back to number one, to reset every day, maybe twice a day if you're lucky, and become still and calm and mindful.
I am here to learn about mindfulness and mental health, the connection between the two, trying to learn more about what we can do in everyday life to try and be more mindful of others, and I'm hoping to learn more about the entire process.
The people who are speaking over the next 2 days are actually, a lot of them are the primary researchers who actually are studying this and understanding brain development and brain fitness as we go along in life. It's really that new. Other speakers will share with you their stories and struggles on how brain fitness and mindfulness have affected them and helped them in their life.
Mind Your Mind is a nonprofit organization that's actually located just up the street, that's where our offices are. They hire young adult speakers, such as myself, who have recovered from mental illness to go out and share our stories in an effort of prevention through education. So we go to colleges, middle schools, high schools, community groups, to share our own experiences with the struggle of mental illness and how we recovered and how we got help, in the hopes of raising awareness and having a more enlightened conversation about mental health.
I'd like to talk about something that's more important, which is the truth about what we are and how we live. How many of you here who meditate think that you do it the right way all the time? That's what I thought. What an amazing thing. Millions of people in this country meditating, hours and hours, and they all think that they're doing it wrong.
But being present for another person has an enormous healing effect, and it helps to build trust in families and on work teams when we're really willing to pause and be present and listen to each other. We need mindfulness to be able to help us be present for ourselves and what we're feeling, the emotions that we feel in the moment. Mindfulness is about simply creating space to be with whatever feeling we feel without any judgment or criticism. And the more that we're willing to be able to be present for ourselves in that way, the better we're able to be present for each other, which is very important, again, in communications, whether it's at work or at home. And if we want to be able to tune in and to be able to read a room or be able to read a team, or read an individual. We need emotional intelligence to do all of that, and mindfulness helps us to be able to cultivate emotional intelligence. Being able to innovate or be creative, being able to think clearly, to kind of clear away all the clutter, all the noise so that we can come up with a great idea or a great strategy requires pausing and letting go of all the noise so we can get to those nuggets, right? Mindfulness and this ability to be present in the moment helps us to be able to ask ourselves, in this moment, what is the most self-caring choice I can make? Do I need to stand up because I've been sitting over an hour? Do I need to take a bio break? Do I need to hydrate? Do I need to feed myself? Do I need to go just look up at the sun and feel the heat on my face? Do I need to call somebody at home? What do I need? What would be the most self-caring thing I could do right here, right now? And so we talk about wellness, we talk about health, and we talk about well-being, and mindfulness to me is the culmination of many choices that we're making all day long that are accumulating at the end of the day. It's not one thing. It's not just going to the gym or just eating right or getting into bed at a particular hour. It's all the things that we're choosing or not all day long that are adding up to create our optimal health and well-being, right? And lastly, at least for this conversation, when we're in fight or flight mode, how many people have heard of fight or flight, right? We're wired this way. This is how we keep ourselves safe when we feel a threat. And you've probably heard this. The body doesn't know, the brain doesn't know whether we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger or if someone just cut us off. The body reacts the same no matter what. So we go into this fight or flight mode. And mindfulness, as we practiced just a few minutes ago, simply following the breath in and out a few times gets us out of fight or flight mode and back to what we call rest and digest. That's body homeostasis. If we're willing to take a few breaths here and there as we're going through the day, how do you think that might impact your body when you get into bed at night? So if we're willing to take a few breaths periodically as we're going through the day, we're always coming back to rest and digest. We're always coming back to body homeostasis. So we don't have so far to come down from at night. And when we're in fight or flight, we know that we're not thinking straight, right? Has anybody ever had a positive outcome for when you've done or said something when you're in fight or flight? Have you ever had things get better in that moment when we're reacting? I know I have, and usually it makes things worse. So the idea is to be able to keep ourselves out of fight or flight as often as is possible so that we can think clearly, so that we can practice a high level of self-care and not do the things that we do when we're in that reactive state where we're just zoning out on more TV or we're in the refrigerator at midnight or having that third glass of wine or lots of other things that we do that actually bring us harm, right? So mindfulness can help us to be able to make clear choices in the moment. That someone said self-love earlier, and I'm all about that too, but if that's a little bit of a distraction, maybe we could start with self-care. So in the spirit of transparency, Edna hired a chief mindfulness officer, and we realized, we really need to take a step back because, there's a big difference, right, between having wellness programs and having a workplace culture of well-being. They're not the same thing, right? But you got to start somewhere. And so we have a history of having a very comprehensive suite of wellness program offerings for our employees and for our customers. Where our growing edge is how do we evolve from that to really bringing mindfulness into the workday so that we're showing up differently. So that's the journey that we're on. And so we, like many others, are still trying to figure that out, but grateful that we get to try this. Next slide. So these are just some tips, and as you're thinking about how you might bring mindfulness into the places where you work, these are from our own experiences, what we've done in terms of really socializing and educating what mindfulness is, really debunking the myths, explaining what it is and what it's not. A lot of times people will have these preconceived ideas of what they think mindfulness is, and they may or may not be accurate. There's a lot of information about mindfulness out there today, and it's very, very confusing. So our first job is really to educate on what mindfulness is and what it's not, and to try to kind of take the woo-woo out of it, if you will. And our strategy has been very much top-down, bottom-up, side to side. So yes, we're very fortunate that we have Mark Berlini as a leader, but that's not enough to drive a strategy through an organization. Yes, you have to have grassroots, and I've seen other companies who only have grassroots who are being very successful. As we all know, it all gets stuck in middle management, right? And so you can have top-down, but you can only get so far. You can have bottom-up, and you can only get so far. So it's the middle managers. In our organization, we have working managers. Their primary job is not only managing and coaching people. They actually have jobs and have direct reports. So that's where everything gets stuck in corporate America, right? So we're trying to provide toolkits for middle management to help break through and create time and make it so that mindfulness is not one more thing on their to-do list, but something easy and beneficial and not scary to bring to teams. So as I mentioned earlier, we offer a lot of different types of wellness programs and practice tools. We're a company of 50,000 people. Half of us work at home. 70% of us are women. We've got a creeping age. The average age is 45, so we have some unique differences and nuances for our own employee population. So we recognize that we need to offer a lot of different tools and resources because everyone's going to engage in a different way. And as you would imagine with a company of 50,000 and growing, that even within that's like a microcosm of the world, that not everybody wants the same thing. So again, as we continue our journey from the inside out, working on our own workplace culture, and then sharing what we're learning with our customers and in the communities that we're serving.
So in this case, if you have long legs like myself, you're going to want to either kick them back or cross them. Ideally, you'd like them on the floor, so if you have a cushion, you can raise yourself up, or a different chair. If you're on the floor, you can raise yourself up. But in this case, for the short session, the other experience you're most likely having is that you're talking to yourself. There's commentary going on. Now, in this meditation, these two experiences are not a problem at all. In fact, they're exactly what we work with. And the way we work with this experience that we're having sitting here is as soon as you notice that you're thinking, as soon as you notice, you deliberately recognize that you're thinking by saying to yourself, thinking. And then you bring your attention to your breathing. And you place your attention on your breathing very gently. Now, attending to the breathing is not simply a mental tracking. It is as much a physical attending to the breathing. You may feel your chest move as you breathe. Or you may feel the breath on your lips or your nostrils as you sit here breathing. So we gently attend to our breathing. Now at some point you'll notice that you're thinking. As soon as you notice you're thinking, as soon as you notice you're thinking, you deliberately label it thinking. You say thinking, and you bring your attention back to your breathing. And attend to your breathing. So we'll do this for a short time, and we'll begin and end this session with a little ringing of this bell. generally speaking, human beings, us here, spend about 50% of our time thinking about something other than what we're doing. Does anyone notice that? Now, there's a range of situations here. Some, like you're caught in traffic, apparently, that's almost 100% of the time you're going to be thinking about something else. On the other extreme is making love. Hopefully, in that situation, you're spending 0% of your time thinking about something else. And then everything in between, and it averages out that we spend about 50% of our time thinking about something other than what we're doing. Now here's where the dime drops. The 50% of the time when we're thinking about something other than what we're doing, 80% of the time, what we're thinking about is more distressing than the actual experience we're having. We're actually offering the very distress we're seeking to avoid. Now, for meditators, this is of great interest. Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. A big part of the suffering that I'm having in my life, I actually have control over, and I'm actually offering it? Yes. I think we call it neurosis or something. I don't know. So, another element of this practice is, can we stop kidding ourselves? Can we stop kidding ourselves? Can we stop believing our own storylines? Part of the beauty of the practice, is a little technical here. I love getting technical about the practice. Part of the discipline is escorting the attention from thought to an object. Pretty boring stuff. Escorting the attention. In order to do that, you have to actually let go of a thought pattern. You do that, do it 2 to 4 million times. Just do that 2 to 4 million times. Take some time, do it 2 to 4 million times. You will notice that you don't buy your story anymore. You actually notice it's just a thought. You're what's traditionally called freedom from fixed mindsets. So in business, right? If you're a CFO, everything's a number. We love CFOs. Any CFOs in there? Good, I can goof on them. Yeah. Everything's a number. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have control, discipline, good planning, good resource distribution. So a CFO's mindset is a beautiful thing, but if you are frozen in that mindset, you're blinded by it. It's the same thing with a salesperson. Salesperson, if everything's a deal, you get blinded. So part of the practice actually creates an agility of mindset. You're able to actually look at various mindsets very easily. You can resonate with various points of view because you're no longer frozen to your own. And this all comes from simply escorting your attention away from the thought. You got to do a lot. And what you begin to find in this practice, mindfulness, awareness, meditation, is the more you practice, the more you begin to notice that the sense of being tender toward your world is actually powerful, not a problem. That we're actually open to our experience when we're willing to come out from the rehearsing our lives and actually engage them, when we're being touched by our world all the time. And we don't have a choice, by the way. We give ourselves the false impression that we have a choice, but we really do. Now again, typically we think of this vulnerability as a weakness, but it's the source and the ground of confidence. It's these young people who jump up in the air, and they don't do it out of weakness. They don't go, you have to jump over the air. No. They have a sense of resilience, potency, presence, confidence. So from the point of view of the practice, as you engage the vulnerability that comes from it, you begin to see that there's a sense of confidence that you can be touched by your world. You can actually engage in conflict with a sense of openness. That rehearsing your experience is actually not necessary. It can actually help. So this confidence is, from the point of view of, for me personally, in using this practice in coaching executives, this confidence is key to the unfolding of the practice. That we no longer have to sort of strategize through our lives, we can actually live them. We don't have to paint our version on our experience, we can actually open to our experience on its terms, not ours. And all of the uncertainties that we engage, be it in business or in raising a child, is actually an invitation to dance with life rather than a threat. And then we discover that we're fully capable of engaging life. We're actually built to live on the planet. This isn't an inherent threat. This is an invitation. But we've been not taking the invitation. We've actually, push this a little further, we've actually created society based upon anesthetizing ourselves to the experience. We don't have one. When I grew up, we had 3 TV channels. And I remember we'd go walking around 11 o'clock and there would be an Indian. Just an Indian in a circle, and it would go. That's it, 11 o'clock. We now have 583 channels that are on 24/7 so that we can make sure that we're entertained and distracted from our lives whenever we want. And we have speed out. Make sure. When we get pizza, we actually put the cheese in the crust now. Right? Just so that everything we have is entertaining. I can tell you in business, the work that I do with leaders, one of the most important competencies is confidence. Because if you're a good leader, you're going to be up against something you do not understand. You do not understand it. Nowadays, some of the problems that leaders are up against are completely new situations like sustainability. These are completely new. We've never addressed these before. So not understanding something is actually exciting rather than a threat. So for leaders, the ability to be at your ease, comfortable in your own skin, open to your experience, curious about it, willing to be touched by it, have an authentic conversation with your world is key if you want to be agile. There are many, many form-based meditations that use very specific techniques to achieve specific outcomes. Then there is what's called formless meditation. Formless meditation uses little or no technique at all. It doesn't seek to achieve anything at all. So again, formless meditation uses little or no technique at all. It doesn't seek to achieve anything. Mindfulness awareness, for all intents and purposes, is a form of formless meditation. Technically, it isn't because there's a little bit of technique in there, but it is. Very little technique. Here's the technique. That's it. Watch it again. It's really lots of technique. Watch. Very little technique. And we're not trying to achieve anything. Now, I personally love saying that in business settings. This is about achieving nothing. Everyone's like, "What? Excuse me?" Smoke comes out of their ears. Mindfulness awareness meditation is not about achieving anything. It's about becoming utterly familiar with your experience. It's not about accomplishing anything. It's not about becoming a better version of who you are. It's about noticing that you're expressing qualities of the mind that you may have overlooked, become familiar with.
The things that I see is why we want to be mindful is it increases our creativity, it decreases our stress, it helps us find and know ourselves. It helps us to experience happiness and contentment, and it gives us perspective. Okay, so all that, how do we do it, right? And I think, the quickest way, I was trying to think of good analogies here, like the quickest way to get a job in investment banking is to go to an Ivy League school, right? The quickest way to be really mindful is a sitting meditation practice, and yet that's really hard. And I will be the first to admit I have periods of my life when I'm really good and periods of my life where I'm not so good. And it's always amazing to me. It's like the simplest thing to do and yet can be the hardest to build up. It's not, and I'm sure you all know this, you don't sit for 2 days and suddenly feel all the effects. There's a build up and it just slowly but surely changes the way your brain thinks and creates those spaces. So whether it be 10 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, a sitting meditation practice, and I'm sure you've heard today like the different ways you can do it, that's really the best way. Another thing is just to find yourself throughout the day to just pause and breathe. Or to pause and check in with yourself, like how am I feeling right now? Or how am I doing?
I'm in New Jersey now, running a very big nonprofit. It's not big, but it's big with who it's reached, with thousands and thousands of kids in schools, bringing yoga and mindfulness. And a lot of things have been validated here because a lot of people will say, oh, well, I do it this way. A lot of things have been validated here. We've always started with the administration and the teachers first to build consensus before we start bringing something in. And one thing that we do is we always make it optional for the teachers. However, we always bring our sessions to them, our professional developments, in a required meeting. So they have to be at a staff meeting or they have to be at a professional development. If you choose to just sit there, that's okay, but you're still in the room listening to it. That's just one little thing that we do. I thought what was really reinforced, and I'd like to do more of it, and we're getting into it more, is the panel when they said the why. All right? When you give the why, and we're finding that with the kids too, well, you explain more how the brain operates. We talk about the fact that, Boston Medical School has said that through research, yoga and mindfulness help to increase GABA levels. And gee, did you know that if you ever feel anxious or depressed or stressed, that that's the reason why it helped you feel better, just like that, right? So there's just a couple of my thoughts. I really thought the sessions have been so interesting. I've not fallen asleep. I've been very mindful, and so that's it.
Slightly different perspective because I'm one of the few people who's not an educator in this room. But I'm looking at this that there's definitely a place for mindfulness in the workplace. And in my job, I consult with companies on their employee benefit programs. And a big part of that is always wellness initiatives and what can companies do to improve the health and well-being of their employees. And certainly, mindfulness is just starting to creep into that wellness space. But I think, again, it's going to explode at some point, and it's just such great benefits. And
I think it's important to have this view in the conversation as mindfulness unfolds. Mindfulness is not another tool in our toolkit to become someone else. It's about the fact that we can finally recognize an inherent decency, an inherent health, an inherent well-being in our own humanity, our own individuality. That is resilient, good,